All right. It's officially 10:33 in the morning here on the Pacific Coast in Pacific time zone. And we're in the third Saturday of June of 2020, 2025. And this is the second of two sessions today we're doing with the Islands of Sanity in a Mad World course. And this has been going since September of 2024. And I was just talking with Alicia, who's just joining us for the first time, but been around other things in this living resilience world. And we were just talking about all the changes that have been going on in our world since September of last year. And I was just noticing as I was kind of describing what we've done here in the course during that time is I've noticed that some people they're basically, even with all the stuff that's going on in the world, there are some people who check in on a very regular basis, like, life is still pretty much like what they're used to, as long as they don't get their ear too far into the news cycle, because it's kind of hard to not be impacted by the news cycle these days. But there are, of course, many of us who are really challenged, really challenged to be able to expand our capacity to be present in the face of what's going on in this world. It was one thing 5 years ago when our biggest issue was, well, gee, am I really accepting that there's climate change? Or am I just aware of climate change and still kind of wrestling with it resistantly? And unfortunately, life has handed us a far more challenging set of circumstances where, we're obviously in a what I would call a fascist dictatorship in the USA that is barely getting going, say many of the pundits. And that has radically shifted the whole conversation about everything with regard to the environment. I don't know what y'all's experience is, but mine is that it has basically annihilated the environment as a conversation. We just, the closest thing I can see these days is that the new glorious spending bill that is still before the Senate uh, will also free up a massive amount of U.S. government land to be reallocated for sales to real estate developers and so on. Not to mention mining and the like. So we have a very different conversation than we've had in years past here in Living Resilience and in the Poetry of Predicament podcast and in Safe Circle, our more drop-in style support group. So I'm really appreciating each of us all on the screen right now. Thank you for being here. We all are in over our heads. We're not just up to our earlobes. We're over our heads in what I call the fire hose to the face of too much content all the time. And so for you to spend time here on screen with us, it means a great deal to me. I really appreciate it. And I've come to really hold as precious these times when we can sit in circle together and within just a few minutes start to generate a shared atmosphere of coherence, which I don't know how you're doing in your household or your neighborhood, but or online, there isn't much coherence going on for most folks, and certainly in much of the world that I'm in. So to be able to sit in circle with us all and have a conversation and have a sharing time in which we can be certain that we will be held in circle and we will hold space for others in circle as well. So again, thank you. I really appreciate it. Did a whole lot of introduction to the space. Alicia, I'm hoping you and I can spend a couple of minutes after this session and I kind of orient you to that course material that I was talking about being in the Living Resilience online community space. And so you could, if you wanted to see the recording of the first hour, which I'd recommend, I think it was pretty good. Richard at least had a lot of interesting things to say. I'm not sure how interesting mine were, but in any case, the um, it's good to be able to have that choice of orienting ourselves to that course material because I think there's a lot of decent stuff to support these threads that we're going to be opening up today. So, what we opened up in the first hour today was a review of Nate Hagen's 10 human qualities that could possibly change our future. And I so appreciate his enthusiasm, his commitment. He's such a great educator and podcaster. And what's interesting is that he absolutely motivated us last time and now this time to start to look at, okay, so if we don't resonate fully with Nate's list, which seems to be true for at least for Richard and myself and a few other folks last time, how might we generate a list amongst the four of us right now? And again, this invitation going out to the folks watching the recording, this will be a background conversation that we can revisit for the next few weeks and maybe couple of months. I think it's a very powerful idea to have this shared language and these kind of tools to be able to keep us focused on what matters most to us. Because what's most important to Richard or to Melissa might not be the same as for Alicia or myself. Yet we can come together and in this shared language and this coherence space, we can still support each other in a very good way, even though we have different practices, we have different um, things that are most important for us. So we covered a bit of that ground together, reviewing a little bit of Nate's list last time. And I was able to introduce a my own first cut at a little bit abbreviated list compared to Nate's. And I'm just going to really quick share screen with you and let you see what that brief list looks like, especially for you, Melissa and Alicia. And yeah, let me get that going.
Hmm.
Okay. Are you able to see that?
Mhm.
A list that has the bold word reconnection in it?
Mhm.
Okay. So, I don't know, Richard, would you be willing to just kind of read through it for us out loud and speak to whatever you recall being of interest or focus for you when we went through it before?
You mean you mean read through it right from the first question there?
Yeah, but sure. You know, that just as a reminder of what the context of this list is, that's about reconnection.
Sure. Okay. What got us into this predicament? We've disconnected from all of the sources of meaning and relationship in human life. And then in terms of reconnection, There's my center slash health, physical, mental, and spiritual health, relationships, sense making, earth and the web of life, and the level of soul, meaning, purpose, love, and grief.
Okay.
Well, we talked, in the first session, we talked quite a bit about the intense grieving that, goes on inside of us, especially people who are, sensitive to all the, things that are happening to the earth and to the way we're, dismembering the environmental movement and all those things. It's like, wow, yeah, there's a lot to grieve right now. So
Yes.
it kind of stood out for me. And then we were also talking about how to, it's like all this horrible crap and shit is being flung in our faces all the time, both in terms of social events and what's happening to the environment and politics and wars and all these things. And it's like, how do we um, transmute all that crap into something better and healthier and more fulfilling inside of ourselves, I guess.
Yes. Exactly. And we finished up that last session with what I thought was just a poignant sharing from a regular doctor who has been practicing his own brand of alternative healing, a guy named Zach Bush, who's quite well known in the USA and around the world. And he had just this lovely sharing about some of his older relatives from whom he learned to slow down and how shocked he was. He was a palliative care doctor in hospice settings for quite a while. And he was really surprised because what he thought he would see from people who are close to dying was that they would want to, rush out and connect with all the people they love and eat all the meals that they, really love and get the, it's kind of like a last chance to really get all kinds of life going on. And what he found time after time was this was an opportunity that they made to slow down and to be in stillness. And I'm actually moved just saying this. I can feel an upwelling of tears and my warmth in my face. There's just such a purity to the simplicity of what he shared. And that's the kind of thing that I would, hope that you might want to watch and watch the recording that I'm talking about so that you can see this. It's quite beautiful. And I included that video because um, it is such a constant fire hose to the face of too much everything all the time. And especially so much of the content is designed to keep us off center. That's not a bug in our world. It is a feature that's been included quite intentionally for decades and decades. And now it's been weaponized. It's to the scale that there's just no chance for our brains to process. So we're constantly kept off center. So that's probably as good a segue into where we are now, which if we follow from the tail end of what I was describing as Zach Bush's message to us, is that this sometimes we call this the inner work of collapse. And I'm really more and more inclined to also call it soul work because if I look at the opposite end of the spectrum from this fire hose to the face, constantly being off center, constantly being polarized and separated from each other, from our own spirit, and so on. If I look at the other end of the spectrum, it's the realm of soul. It is the realm of slowing down and of being able to selectively bring our attention to the beauty, to the ineffable, that I believe the wisdom traditions for thousands of years, this is what people have put themselves into monasteries for, or to be on the top of a mountain in a cave for their entire life, was to get a drop on their tongue, just a tiny amount of the experience of the beauty that is in this life. And just a few weeks ago, we had a few remarkable conversations, and Richard took it to the next level by, you're a writer, Richard, in the website called Medium, amongst other platforms. And sure enough, after this round of conversations that we had in the community of practice group, um, you you did this extraordinary just sharing of what you experienced when one of our fellow community of practice people shared how she was so able to carry both the horrors of what we're facing. I mean, there are some just bone-jarringly horrific things going on, many of them existential, now called the polycrisis. And at the same time, in the other hand, and possibly far beyond that other hand, at a whole different scale, is this essential, miraculous, and ineffable quality. So that's really one of the core threads of this work is how do we touch that? How do we weave more and more of that into our lives? And what I think I'd like to ask us to do to put it in context, if you'd be willing, is I'd like to ask us to check in and if possible, a two-part check-in. I'd like to ask each of us to check in with, I don't know, a minute or two about what are you what are you coming in with in your life? What's in your experience? What are the challenges? What's challenging you right now? And what's inspiring you right now? What is making it really hard to feel connected in this world? And what is breathing a whole different level of connection for you in this world? So I'm going to do my best to model this because I guess I'm asking something that I find very challenging, which is to be brief, but also to share in a um, and so I'm going to start with what I'm bringing in. What are some of my current challenges and inspirations? I think I'm going to ask for us to be, maybe we could just do the whole session with two parts of a check-in. The first part will be each of us just speaking what we're bringing in. What are the big challenges going on right now? And what are some of the inspirations going on for you right now? And so we each take about, I don't know, 2 minutes apiece to share a bit of that. And again, I'm going to do my best. I'm going to even time myself because I'm horrid at this. I will easily take this to 20 minutes, and I don't think you really want that. Okay. I'm bringing in really two major things, and they're very similar to the handfuls that I was just talking about. The two biggest challenges that I got going on right now is when I really feel into what's going on in this country, in the USA, in the in incursion of the whole fascist dictatorship thing. There's immense cruelty, and I just don't know how to be with that. It's at a scale that I never want to see, and I don't want it to get worse. And it's energetically of a nightmare proportion in my system. I want to be rageful. I want to be fearful. I want to be griefful. It's just, and I have not given myself the space to fully feel, which I know I need to do. I know I need to do that, but haven't yet. And so, I got some buildup in my system about that. Hmm. And I'm also just grieving right now about the complete annihilation of the environmental concerns that we're barely breathing up till now anyway. We just don't really give a shit about this environment at any level, at any scale. But now it's been just stomped with a boot. It's just gone. So I can say that those are two major challenges for me. And the other side, the inspiration side, I'm going to be super brief with that. I am so blessed to be in a new job and also in my own practices, which I've been doing for a long time. I'm feeling like a combination of Forrest Gump and a Zen priest right now, Zen monk. Very, very simple level daily living in which I'm of service in my job, and it's so simple and it's so just about daily, hi, how you doing conversations and offering up the best of my attention to people. And it's heaven. It's heavenly. So those are the biggest challenges going on, and there's a brief picture of some of the inspiration that's going on. Is there anybody who'd like to check in next?
I could. Thanks, Dean.
Yeah.
Well, I'm Melissa Harmon. I'm in Alameda, California. Hi, new Alicia. Yeah, and Richard. I enjoy reading your articles very much. I have Medium.
Oh yeah, thanks.
Yeah, it's amazing to. I was just talking to a friend earlier about coming to terms with some of the things that are happening, you know, and that I have a group that I go to, Islands of Sanity, and she goes, "Oh, I don't think you should go to that because, you know, you really don't need to be thinking about that right now. You know, you're this and that." And it's like, oh my God. But I didn't contradict her too much because I know that's how she's feeling. She doesn't want to go there. And a lot of my friends don't, and I understand that. But to come to a place where we're actually looking, to help our own sanity while discussing this stuff is the healthiest thing I can think of to do. Um, you know, uh, but, and, the meaning and purpose of life is, like I say when I come to a lot of these meetings, I really am kind of stuck, and not in a bad way. I'm not stuck in a bad way. What I'm trying to say is, I usually talk about evolutionary processes and ecology. I was introduced to a man who, recently died. God, what was his name again? Dean, who talks about evolution as being his scripture.
Michael Dowd.
Yeah, Michael Dowd, and had the chance while he was alive to listen to some of his. And he has a lot of things that he reads, reads online books about this sort of thing. And so I'm really kind of developing the attitude that ecological and evolutionary processes are part of my higher power or my purpose or the meaning of purpose. And because this is, we look back at our past as, of the earth, and we've had numerous, well, more than one extinction. You've heard of that, the great extinctions. This is supposedly the sixth. And so putting it in that category and looking at it that way, it doesn't seem so toxically horrible because these are things that happen and have happened in the past. Now, humans, of course, are different matter. Dinosaurs really didn't have a sense of morality, I'm sure. No, when they were getting eliminated by a comet that, or rather an asteroid, whatever, that came and messed with them. So I'm totally into the science of everything, and I think that I really revere scientists who discovered and looked at the causes of these things. So now here we are, I guess the best thing the thing that I'm really kind of stuck on at the present time is that we're, this fascist government type thing, and the very sick people that are running it. It's what am I trying to say? That they're predators. Okay, humans are interesting in the ways that they are both predators and prey. Humans, there are plenty of humans that are not primarily predators, although anybody who eats meat, you could say that they're a predator, on that level. But preying on other humans, that would seem to me like a really bad thing. I know that Nate Hagens has lists of what is evil or what you would consider evil, but part of his list is that, are you only anthropocentric? Are you not looking at all the other animals and plants? And if you are just anthropocentric, that's evil. Or that, I don't like to say that word because it gets over too much into the religious part, what is evil and what is Satan and all that stuff, which I know those are mythologies, but I'm not into that sort of way of describing it. But I can just go on and on. But to be able to just talk about this in a way that makes sense to me, that, and Dean and I appreciate introducing me to all of the sense-making people. Nate Hagens is one of them, and, there are many, but they're not getting center stage, Richard is one of them, and he has articles on Medium, which I think is a great place to do this. But I mean, alas, my friends aren't the friends that I have here, Anyway, I won't go on about it, but it's difficult. So I'm just so glad I found this meeting. And so evolutionarily, it's really incredibly interesting, all of the details of what's happening. My friend I talked to today just thought it was bad for me to come to this meeting because I'm not helping myself psychologically by dwelling on this kind of stuff. And she's got some theory that I'm not going to get into it. But so I guess that's about all I have to say, just to introduce how I'm thinking about this. And I'm really glad to be here.
Great.
Thanks.
Melissa, thank you.
I guess I can go. I can go next. There's just been a few mundane things that came up in the last couple of weeks that aren't particularly pleasant. One is I went to see my dermatologist I tend to get a lot of little moles and all kinds of little skin growths and things, and most of them are benign, but I went to him That's after 8 months or so, and last week, and he thought most things were fine, but found this one spot on my abdomen that he didn't like, and he thought it might be like a precancerous kind of growth or something. Anyway, he did a biopsy on it and took a little slice out of it and sent it to the lab. And so I've been waiting to get an answer about that. And then I did get the answer, and they think, it needs to be removed. They think it's a, cancerous growth. So I have to go in a month or so,
Mm.
actually exactly 1 month from today. I have to go in a month just for this little operation where he just cuts out a little piece there, cuts out a little piece of me that's gotten cancerous. Um, but in the meantime, the place where he did the biopsy, they just slice off a little part of the mole or whatever. The place where he did that got infected, so uh, I had to get on antibiotics too, which I don't particularly like to do. But right now I'm on a pretty heavy duty course of antibiotics. So that's been, a little bit nerve-wracking, I guess. Um, but I think the infection's getting better now. So aside from that, my physical health is pretty good. In terms of mental and emotional health, not so much. I mean, this, fire hose to the face of really horrible news and information, and just I'm pretty environmentally oriented, or I was in the past, and I even worked as an environmental education instructor quite a bit. And for me to see our culture go into total reverse and, you know, undermine all the environmental progress and undermine all the environmental rules and regulations and even a level of caring about the environment is like Dean said, it's all being shot down or undermined or just trampled. And that's really, really hard to watch. Uh, yeah, and what else? Let's see. Yeah, not much else really going on. Oh, well, actually, there is I've been in a men's group here in Georgetown, Texas, and we were meeting on the phone ever since COVID. And one guy who was in the men's group, it was a very small group, it was only three guys. And one of the guys was dying of Parkinson's disease, and he finally did die from it about a week and a half ago, or I guess 2 weeks ago now. So, I attended a memorial service for him, kind of a celebration of life, and that was real sweet. But basically, our men's group is sort of dissolved because now it's just two of us, and we might talk once in a while, but it's certainly not a group. So, yeah, the last 2 weeks have been kind of intense, actually, uh, between my personal life stuff and the political and environmental bad news. Um, yeah, it's pretty hard to deal with all this crap.
Mhm.
But I'm here. I'm sort of surviving and taking one day at a time, I guess. That's it for me.
Richard, thank you.
Thanks, Richard.
That leaves me to check
Yeah.
Yeah.
in. I already sort of checked in with Dean earlier
Right.
that I'm getting over bronchitis,
Oh, okay.
and we had a big storm here last night. So, kind of, getting this internal and external feeling of, um, you know, not safe or stress or
Hmm.
vulnerability, I guess. Right. So that's got me thinking about things and things that I need to change for my trying to continue changing in my lifestyle and my health overall. I guess one thing that's shifted a few months ago, and it was long in coming, that I got away from the Unitarian Universalist church that I was doing music for. and backed down from that, and it was like I was holding Catholicism and Unitarian Universalism because I grew up Catholic. Those two things are very different.
Right.
And I could only do that for about a year before I started to just okay, something's got to go here. And there was some, controversy. I don't want to say controversy, but like with somebody being trans in that group, me really not feeling like how it was. I just can't get behind that, in myself. If that was my daughter or whatever, but um, I've fully now stepped away from that and practicing how I have been anticipating practicing for the last year. It's been challenging, but really beautiful because it's like settling back into um, your home, somewhere you can actually relax and actually be nourished and supported.
Hmm.
So that's been a big change. And then finding other ways to continue music and to have still that outlet. I get this stupid bronchitis and I won't be able to sing for like 2 or 3 weeks. I'll be kind of off for that. I was going to sing for Mass tomorrow and I'm not going to be able to. This is just a story, I guess. You're talking about your mole.
Yeah.
A client of mine, I thought she had a mole on her back this last week. Here was a tick.
Oh.
I wound up
Yeah.
getting my hemostat and doing a little minor surgery mid-massage. I think that's happened once before, but twice in the span of 20 years.
Yuck.
All right. Well, Alicia, again, welcome. It's good to see you and seeing I don't even remember how long it's been, but too long. So good to see you. And I'm sorry that you're grappling with the bronchitis thing,
uh-huh.
but it seems like it's fading.
Yes.
Good. Good. You bringing up about different ways of having a religious or a spiritual um, part of life going on. I'm curious if there are any of us on this in this circle right now that are aware of the evangelical and Catholic presence in Project 2025, the Heritage Foundation, really the brains behind the policies that we're seeing in Trump 2.0. I'm curious if that rings a bell for any of us, any of y'all. Are you aware of like Project 2025 or the Heritage Foundation and some of the influences they have had on the Trump administration? Does that ring a bell?
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Alicia, is that familiar? Are any of those words familiar?
Not really, because one of my coping strategies is to sort of disconnect from
Sure.
it.
No, I understand. I understand.
But I'm sure, there's things in that religion that are I couldn't get behind that either.
Mhm.
I'm practicing it from my own sort of mystical understanding,
Sure.
Yeah.
embracing the mysticism of it and the history of it. But
Hmm.
there's people. Is there evil people in the Catholic Church? For sure. For sure. Are they overly political? Probably,
Mm.
and they always have been.
Yeah.
Do I even know the tenth of it? I don't.
Okay. No, I'm just curious, and we needn't follow that thread. I was just curious because there was a little bit mention of a couple of the brands of religious experience going on in the states that were mentioned, and so I was just curious. Um, so what I'd like us to do, thank you everybody for checking in with some aspects of what's challenging for you or what's kind of nudging on you these days, and perhaps sharing a little bit about what's also inspiring or helping you get through your days
Oh,
in a good way. And I'd like to ask us to do a second round of sharing and take a look, if you will, at the what's in the chat there. What got us into this predicament, and that the assertion over here is we've disconnected from all the sources of meaning and relationship in a human life, which I know is kind of a radical, bold statement. Um, but that does seem to fit, especially as the years go by and I'm involved with this work. And so we put at the center of the living resilience kind of body of work is, so how do we reconnect if we are indeed disconnected from one another and from our own sense of self, from other people, from earth, and from soul? What are some ways we can reconnect with those kind of important inner dimensions, uh, parts of what it is to be a person? So again, I'm gonna start us out by just offering a couple of things that I'm seeing, and I'm just gonna go down that. If you could check out in the chat where that list starts with the bold reconnection, the word reconnection, and
yep,
I'm
I got
just
it. I
gonna,
got it.
uh-huh. Y'all seeing that? Is that good?
Mhm.
Okay. And so it's not meant to be like you must answer, using these words or something. It's just see if there's anything that sparks for you that would that you could add to your own list. Like if you were going to do your own little list, like Nate Hagens did, what might you include? So I'm going to do my do my best to give you an example of what I'm talking about. Please, what I'm saying and what I'm focusing on might have nothing to do, it likely doesn't have anything or much to do with what you're grappling with in your life. Just take a little peruse down the list as I give you my best example of a brief rundown of how I might engage some of these little kind of prompt words to address a couple of the challenges that I shared in the earlier part of the check-in. So the two main things that I remember checking in with in terms of the challenges are the just the scope and scale of what's going on with this fascist thing, and really what's been going on for my whole lifetime, in terms of really not giving a shit about the environment. I know people like to talk like they do, and God bless the people who have really committed their lives to being activists and tried so hard and so on. I just don't see us at any particular scale on this planet. I just don't see it working out in a good way. It wasn't looking good 10 years ago. It wasn't looking good 5 years ago. And it's just been going downhill. All we've done during 30 years of having those COP meetings about the climate change issue is we've increased our amount of consumption of fossil fuels and are continuing to cause greater and greater damage through climate change. And that, of course, is just one of many items on a list that's sometimes called the polycrisis. So again, my challenges that I spoke of were the uh, fascist orientation of our cultural and political atmosphere in this country is energetically and now quite visibly and palpably violent at a level that is really terrifying to me. And the level of being feeling shaken about that started when they started shipping people out of this country to El Salvador, and they're setting up other places for other concentration camps, basically, to go to take whoever they're taking out of this country. And I have no doubt whatsoever that that's going to be U.S. citizens. It's not going to be about the supposed issue of immigration anymore, which is bad enough how they're doing it. It's just inhumane. And in any case, I think we're just inches away from large scale citizens being taken away as well. I have really very little doubt about that. And that's really disturbing to me. Uh, I'm just slowing down now, noticing, I can feel a bubbling up of rage, of fear, and of grief, all three um, in my system. And so when I look down that reconnection list, there's a lot for me to take on in terms of what's often called self-regulation, being able to bring myself back to a centered place, to a sense of my system being settled instead of upset or anxious or rageful or so on. I know that I've been working on those skills for a long time of self-regulation, of returning to center. And I know that it's time to go to the next level with those skills, no matter how long I've been working on them. My spiritual practice is, I am just so deeply thankful that I've got it going on. I think I mentioned in my original check-in moments that I'm just so thankful for the simplicity of the work that I do, that I can be in authentic service and I can set aside my anxiety and whatever else I might have going on, the rage or whatever I'm plagued with in the background. I can authentically let it just dissipate and set it aside and be more fully present to my connection with the people that I work with and for. Um, it is a spiritual practice, and I think it's been rare that I've had this kind of full spectrum feeling of like what I'm doing for my living is actually a spiritual practice right now, and I'm so thankful for that. I'm so deeply thankful, and I know I'm a rare bird in that way. So many of us don't quite have that full full-throated connection between the two. In relationships, I'm actually feeling in very good kind of condition, good shape with regard to my relationships, from my intimate relationships to my family to my neighborhood and elsewhere. I'm feeling essentially pretty dang good. I will mention something that I know a couple of you have heard before, that I'm it's going on, I don't know, 8 months now, 10 months, that I am not connected with my sister anymore. I was adopted into a family very early on, and she's the last remaining sibling that I was adopted into relationship with them. And she basically, last time I saw her, said, I don't want to see you anymore. And it's been tough. It's been very, very tough. And that would be the one pretty serious place where I really have no choice but to be in acceptance of it, because it's not like there's some open door where we can work this out. It's kind of been read the final resolution of that, and so other than that particular piece, I'm feeling strong and good with the relationships in my life. With the sense making and earth and the web of life connection and the soul, meaning, purpose, and love and grief, I can just lump those all into these. This is a wonderful area of, um, there. It's all familiar territory, and it will never end in terms of exploring and deepening my relationship with that territory. Soul is a very important notion for me, of slowing down and deepening my connection with life itself, with the web of life. That's where soul lives for me. And grief is an essential part. Grief is not something for me that to get like a sickness and then get over in a few weeks, and then boy, that's all done now, and I don't have to think or feel that anymore. It's more of an essential part of remembering how much I love some part of being alive. And if that part is now missing, or if no longer with us, or if there's been a change, it's just a natural thing to,
Mm.
as an expression of that love, is to complete it, or to continue to shift that relationship with person or an animal or part of life, that it just feels like wholesome and good to have grief be a regular and a healthy part of that life. So, and that's the nature of this work, which again, I just hold as so precious, to sit in circles like this, to be able to move those aspects forward in a good way in this life. So that's my rendition. Um, yours will be different. You will have different things that spark you in this exploration, or this sharing that you might want to do, about how will you put together the prompts, the reminders of aspects of life that will, you bring your attention to it, and it may well help you get through these times, be more present in these times. So, is there anybody who'd like to start us up with this round of speaking to what's possible, what's available for inspiring yourself to expand your capacity to be present?
I could go.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dean. Yeah, to look at what kind of visions that I'm having of how to put, some of to live within these ideas. And they're not only ideas, I mean, they're reality. Uh, but I often lived within a science fiction book. I really liked reading science fiction and, novels, and while sort of ignoring what was really going on. But now it's like this life now is like a big science fiction novel. Um, there's one writer I particularly like who should take it on, but nobody's taking it on right now. I mean, it's massive how you could actually write a book about what's going on right now. But anyway, we're living it. So in a way, I'm grateful that I'm aware that I don't have to run away from it in order to live it. That was been my MO, most of my life. When things weren't going the way I thought they should in my family, whatever, I would usually get away or run away, one way or another. But no, I'm not doing that. Having a group like this is a great reminder that I don't have to do that. And I do belong to another group that isn't exactly doing this, but I know a lot of people. A lot of them are local. I can just go drop in, but most of them don't like to talk about this stuff either. So, and an art group. I belong to another art group. So I'm just saying what's happening that I think is really valuable is to find a group like this, or or people in your neighborhood or somewhere. I like when I first came in here, I was talking about how I used to live in communes, and
Mhm.
I lived in communes in Florida, and I really had a nice time there. It wasn't like permanent, but looking at how to live with people, and I have to say the communes that I lived in, they had a shelf life. People would be very optimistic about what was going to be happening in the commune, and it really went on very well for a while. And I loved it because I was young. I was in my 20s, and everybody had we had a list of what you would do. Everybody took part in cleaning the place and took part in cooking. So this was, it was back in the hippie days, and this was the idealistic reality, and it was great, for the time that it was there. I remember many things about that. I followed another commune that someone was writing, and they were doing cartoons about it in San Francisco. It went on for a long time, much longer than the ones I was in. But the thing that got them was about who was going to take care of the children. They decided they wanted to have children, and this was, one of those more far out communes where people weren't married, but they were sort of making a commitment to each other. And so whoever was having the baby everybody else was expected to take care of the child, just like take care of who cleaned the kitchen that day. And that didn't work. So I always remember that. So we're having this much more giant possibility of how can we do this thing that we're in. So what I'm thinking of is like, it's very weird because since I first got in here, talked about the communes, I have a commune now going on, kind of. I've since moved into this much smaller space, which was hard. I was looking at all the shit I collected in 25 years, and my partner's collected even more than me, because this is what the place, he actually got this place. And but we're renting to people now who we know quite well. And I won't go into the structure of it, but I want it to be more of a commune. I'm thinking of it that way. And there's just one person here who's kind of a mensch, he's really thought about all of these things, and we talk about it occasionally, but his two kids are living with him, and I don't think he wants to get too deep into what's going on with them because they're just like graduating from high school. So there's that. But, and another guy, I won't go on, I know I could talk forever, but like I was outside looking at the yard, and we're going to have we always have had this party here for the 4th of July, if you can believe that. This is Alameda, and it generally is a town that has had this giant 4th of July parade with many, many, like, black horsemen, Mexican horsemen, people riding horses, all kinds of different, it really has opened up politically gay and lesbians people in the parade. This town wasn't like that when I first moved here, but it's a fairly liberal place. So I'm not wondering what the fuck's going to go on in this parade, but I'm going to do it. I just got over being very sick, but I want to do this parade. Generally, I have a bunch of tables with snacks and drinks and stuff, and people come if they know we're having, because the parade goes right by a house, right in the front, and so that's going to be real interesting. So I won't go on about that, but basically, it's just trying to live with the people that are around me. I'm hearing
Mm-hmm.
Dean say that you can have a job that is not necessarily just preaching to people or anything, but it's the way you deal with the people that are around you,
Mm-hmm.
and just like not giving in to this whatever. I don't know. I don't know what it is, and so therefore I don't care that I don't know everything. I just want to live within what's happening,
Yeah.
and I'll want to use some of the ideals we had during the commune time. Ideally, a commune is everybody gets a job and they all put in a pot of money. Well, that's not happening now. It could. I mean, because if people can't get jobs, whatever, what are you going to kick them out? There would be things to do. There would be ways to do it. Keeping an open mind is, I guess, basically the idea I have. And praying, to, like Michael Dowd, ecology is my theology,
Yeah.
and that sort of thing. So anyway, that's enough.
Well, mostly, for the years that you've been around these various kinds of groups that we do here, you've shared a lot about your community involvement, whether it's at a household level from your past with doing that or present with doing that, and then also the neighborhood projects and so on. You've really continued to bring a light to that level of engagement. And you're reminding me of what Richard started us out with in the very first session today, which is his mention of, sometimes writing, excuse me if I paraphrase incorrectly, Richard, but it seemed like you were saying sometimes it just gets too discouraging to try and address humanity's issues because they're just so damn big now. They're just impenetrably big.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what if we were to scale it back to, as you said, Melissa, like the level that we're living in, the people I'm living around, the issues that I got in daily living. And I don't know how else to do it, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
And both of you having a slightly different way of saying it, I don't know how else to do living life in a fascist environment, in a self-terminating culture. I don't know how better to do it than to just be as present as possible at the scale of living that we're present to. So my hat's off to both of you. Thank you for both of your sharing in that way.
Thanks, Dean.
Yeah. Alicia, do you feel like chiming in?
Sure. Comes up thinking about this reconnection. I guess one of the thoughts I was having, like similar to what you just said, that you have to bring it back to, the immediacy of your own life
Yeah.
and your own mortality, really, because what are you going to experience? You're not going to experience mortality in the abstract. You are going to someday experience it in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I in my work, I'm working with elderly and 90 plus year old people. And it's given me a real sense of there's nothing scary there, I mean, if there's pain, there's pain. You deal with that. If there's anxiety, there's anxiety. You deal with that. But that person is that the person they've been their whole life. They essentially aren't any different than they were 30 years ago or 50 years ago. Like, so if there's something I think is going to be magically different the day I die, no, there won't. I'm living the way I'm going to die right now. And I hesitate to bring up, but that's part of my practice, like the spirituality, where the prayer is now and at the hour of our death. You know, it's almost like this constant practice of releasing, surrendering, being at peace with, like,
Hmm.
you know, so I remember a priest said it like this, that there's only two things you can be sure of, that there's now and there's the hour of your death. And that's, you know, pray for me now and at the hour of our death. It's in the Hail Mary. Um, you say that over and over again. You know, it's like a mantra to bring you into a sense of peace around it and in a sense of surrender around it. Because really, what can you do? And you can't. But the mind is going to say, your mind and your thinking is going to try to come up with something that you can do, because it just can't handle that kind of surrender. You know, it can't let it go. But what else? Yeah, that storm last night really just impressed upon me this feeling, because I was a little scared. I went in the shower, and then my daughter's like, "Don't go in the shower. That's like bad for lightning." So then I went down, risked going downstairs. There was something dripping in the back entryway, and I like put something there. Um, some I think it was about 10 miles away got like really damaged, like stuff, you know, structural damage, and there was some tornadoes.
Well,
And
where are you?
this was Bismarck, North Dakota.
Well, you're in North Dakota. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, we even had the storm chaser up here last night.
Oh, wow. Hmm.
About a dozen tornadoes or so on the east side of the state.
Wow.
But so nervous system wise, you know, whether you're sitting in a bomb shelter or you're sitting in the basement because there's tornadoes, like it's kind of similar. And I was just thinking how, you know, we can be like, oh, it's nobody's fault that, well, you could say it's climate change fault that the weather was so crazy. But if you're like in a war, that would be so much more like kind of like over time stressful. Like last night, we can shake it off, or we're looking at interesting pictures on Facebook of the damage, and it's a beautiful sunny day today, you know. But if you were in parts of the world where they're just not getting a break, and it's going to keep going and it's going to keep going, like does, yeah, it just doesn't seem right. And there's nowhere to go, because where are you going to go? Like people wind up like, you know, becoming refugees. America was supposed to be the safe place, supposed to be like where people could go.
Not anymore.
Yeah. So I think everybody's feeling that on some level, right? Like globally.
Oh, yeah.
There's been a lot of like in the last 4 or 5 years, I've had a lot of like substantial losses, you know, the marriage, a close aunt, my dad, another aunt passed away in the last couple weeks. So as far as grief goes, it's become a familiar process. And I think that's really all I have to say.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Mhm.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate your sharing, especially the work that you're doing with older folks. That it reminds me of that thing I was telling you that I played from Zach Bush in the first session. He's talking about some of his older relatives as well, and how he just never forgot the gorgeous, simple beauty that they brought. His great grandmother and his grandmother, in particular, reminded me of very much of what you were sharing. So thanks for that. I really appreciate it.
Well, I can go. do my second sharing here. I think I'll keep it pretty brief. Um, I'm mainly feeling like my relationships are going through some changes right now. I was doing some couples therapy with my partner Darlene, and she decided that she wasn't getting much out of it, so we stopped the couples therapy, and I have mixed feelings about that. Um, but she's also kind of made it real clear that she doesn't think she's aware of all these things that we talk about, but she doesn't think that getting together in groups and talking about these things does any good, and she just thinks it's depressing, and so she doesn't want to go there, or she doesn't want to do this kind of stuff. And so, between her, not really getting much out of therapy, and also not wanting to do this kind of group, I'm sort of feeling like, unfortunately, she's kind of, what's the word, in my mind, she's sort of like part of this large group of humanity that doesn't want to deal with shit. Um, and yeah, I can accept that to a point, but it creates a little bit of a barrier between us, I feel like, because I can't open up to her on every level that I'd like to. Uh, so that's disappointing. So I have some grief about that. And then, of course, I mentioned my friend from the men's group dying a couple of weeks ago, and that's, new, that's recent. I have some grief about that, and the men's group itself basically ceasing to exist. That's sort of dropped away. I can keep talking to the one other guy, but that's a little different. Um, so, hmm, yeah, it kind of feels like I'm in a period of reevaluation right now, and trying to kind of decide what's going on in my relationships, and what's working and what isn't, and if I need to change anything, or just accept the way things are, or what. And in terms of the earth and the web of life, we've already talked about this a lot, and I'm not going to go into it a lot, but just the way the environmental movement has basically imploded, and it's not even that it died. I think it was murdered. I mean, the environmental movement was basically murdered and trampled, and that's really pretty horrendous, considering that was about our last hope. So that's pretty awful. I have a lot of grief about that, and a lot of anger about it too. Uh, I just cannot believe how backward our society and our government is right now, and they're just moving backward at light speed. It's very very frightening and upsetting. Um, that's probably all I need to say. I'm continuing to write about this stuff, and that's good, and I'm glad about that. But it is hard to absorb all this. I mean, even just the stuff I'm writing about is pretty overwhelming. Um, Mainly, I deal with that pretty well. Once in a while, I start to feel overwhelmed, but I don't know. Somehow, I usually manage to acknowledge it and move on. That's about it for me.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There's an aspect that I was thinking about including today, but I'm not sure, but it seems like I might be the only one of the four of us that's really got some attention on this particular piece, and that's um, what I didn't share about in terms of relationship. I was going down that list of little prompt words to share with you about. I didn't mention the kind of challenge that I'm feeling, and it's growing inside myself, and I don't know how it's going to turn out. And that is, I more than any time in the past, say, 12 years that I've been really active in putting together this body of work and offering up resources to the collapse aware community and all this stuff. I've just not been inclined to be an activist in any way. There was this million-person march in New York about, I don't know, 6 years ago. There have been occasional, things like XR here in the States. There have been a few actions, and there's a chapter of XR up in Portland here in the state where I live, and so on.
Well, what is that? XR? What is that?
Extinction Rebellion, sorry.
Oh, okay.
Right. But ever since the beginning of this year, when Trump 2.0 presidency started up, and especially when it was obvious that there was a very real incursion of fascist uh, atmosphere in this country, I started to feel like an upwelling of something that just seemed really true in my system. Like I may just end up doing some kind of activism, and I don't know what that is yet, but it's feeling far more true in my heart of hearts than anything that's about climate change or about species extinction or really any part of the poly crisis up till now. I just haven't. And there's a particular video clip from the past few weeks during um, the upwelling in LA, the big deal with the National Guard being called
Oh, yeah.
and they're protecting buildings and
Right.
then bringing in the Marines, even though neither of those were asked for by the governor or anybody else in California.
Right.
Why that's current for me, not only in my life as I'm considering what kind of activism might be real for me, is that it's extraordinary to me the level of polarization that we've got going on in this country and how quickly it turns to large scale violence. And I'm talking about the vast majority of it is right wing caused. Sure, is there some Antifa somewhere? Yeah, but by scale and proportion, it's just
Right.
ridiculously small. What I also have noticed in doing this work with a lot of people over time is that there's really little opportunity for the average person to learn how to speak passionately and authentically about what matters most to them without going to some kind of polarized speaking that's antagonistic, that starts to trigger. It's built to trigger.
Yeah.
If there's one thing we're learning out of all the mischief that's been going on for years now in social media, that's designed to have one side trigger the other side, which triggers the other side, which all adds up to dollars for the platforms
Yeah.
for social media platforms. So it's just encouraged and encouraged and inflamed. And that's what we get good at.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious if it would be of use. If you've tracked with stuff relatively recently in the poetry of Predicament, you might have seen a brief clip that I put out that from a guy speaking. He's an activist. He's a protester, and he's at a federal building in LA, and he's in front of a parking lot full of National Guard troops and their Humvees and so on. And so, of course, they're armed and they're protecting the building. That's what they're there for. So at least they're not harassing people. They're not. This is not a big moment where they're, at odds with one another. But there's this guy who stands up. This protester stands up. And I don't know where he learned his way of communicating, but it's one of the most inspiring things I've seen in a long time, where he stands up and he fully expresses himself. He does not withhold his rage of what's going on in his community, where the National fucking Guard is showing up. And then now, because he's talking about the Marines are coming down the street tomorrow. So, add that to the mix. Particularly what I'd like to acknowledge about him is there's a way in which he's able to be real and fully expressing himself and still maintain a very high level of dignity and respect for these National Guard officers or troops that are there.
Yeah.
So, with your permission, I'd like to wrap us up today with a brief moment of this guy speaking. And for me, I use it as an aspiration. I can aspire to having that level of skill, of being able to fully express myself and still be able to fully honor and respect the humanity of the people I'm talking to.
Yeah.
Great.
Just want to say I do have a pretty much a hard stop at 2. I might be able to stay, well, 2 o'clock where I am.
Uh-huh.
I might be able to stay 1 or 2 minutes after, but not longer.
Okay. Got it.
Great. Yeah, I'd like to see it.
Yep, me too.
So let me show you this clip real quick, because I think it's really, really powerful. And what this man is doing is courageous, and this is the way I think more of us should be engaging as we enter into protests.
Feel tough with your assault rifles and your sticks? You should be standing here with us.
Stand with us.
You're on the wrong side of history. We know you got a job to do, but you took an oath to the Constitution, not to the fascists in the White House. Think about what you're doing now. Think about what this means. Coming into our community. Peaceful fucking community. People working their jobs. They send in men in military fatigues. Weapons of war into our communities. And you stand here and you allow it. I am sick and tired of it. You should be sick and tired of it. You think any of these people in the White House sending you these commands give a fuck about you? Not one of them do. They laugh at you. Our president laughs at you. He calls you fools. He said the people who died overseas in the military were chumps. That's who you're offending right now. Every last. Think about your place in history, ladies and gentlemen. Ask yourself when you wake up tomorrow. I don't know if you have kids. Ask yourself the future you want for your children. Is it this? You can answer me. Is it this? Do you feel good about this? You're tough behind your fucking masks and your fatigues and with your weapons, but how do you feel on the inside? This is our fucking community, and we will fight for it if we have to. Full streets! Full streets! Full streets!
I I get chills when he said, "You can talk to me," and when he said, you're wearing all this body armor and you have your weapons, but like, how do you feel on the inside? You can hear the anger in his voice, but you can also hear his desire to appeal to the humanity of the National Guard that's there. I'm sorry, getting a little bit choked up here. Okay. I have so much respect for whoever this gentleman is. I think that what he said from the heart, the way he spoke to the service members there, I think that this is a model for how we should be choosing to engage. He let his anger show through. He didn't pretend that he wasn't enraged, but he also didn't let go of his compassion and his humanity. And I just think that what he said and did here is so powerful and is so important and is something that we all need to look to and learn from and emulate. So let me show you this clip.
Thanks, Dean.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wow, pretty amazing.
Yeah. So I think we have our work cut out for us to stay present in the face of circumstances that none of us have ever seen before. Nobody in the USA has had to face fascism head on. None of us has ever had to face the complete annihilation of an environmental movement that was not doing well to begin with. And now it's gone. And so there's some massive challenges, and I invite us to get together, to use each other for support and holding space for one another, and to come up with ways in our own way. We not all of us are going to stand up like that man did in a protest way. We're going to find our own ways to make it work in our own communities, in our own neighborhoods, in our own families. And so thank you so much for being here and being willing to just nudge this conversation forward of how can we be more and more present as things get tougher and tougher? How can we bring more and more of the beauty and love and really solid, good relatedness in the face of cruelty and decimation of what used to be called the social safety net in our culture? Thank you so much for your time and effort being here. I hope to see you all again next couple Saturdays from now, and or at Safe Circle or at the Community of Practice. And if Alicia or anybody else would like, some support in getting in touch with the course materials or whatever, please just send me an email and we'll set up a Zoom talk. Or if you'd like to do that now after we close up shop, I'm happy to stay on. So thank you all. And man, I can't believe it, but we finished right on time.
Thanks. Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. See you next
Yeah, that was a good video and good conversation, everybody. Thank you.
time.
Thanks. Bye.
Let me
Bye-bye.
hop on.